Hi guys. All right, so this is the motor system, the part two that we are going to talk about. So you should have the PowerPoint slides already. So let's get started. So let me see. What do we have here? All right, so the let me share screen. So that's this one here. All right, so we are going to reach into the end of this course. Uh, This is the second to the last lecture. So with this one, we will talk about the vestibular and cerebellum. So this is part of the upper motor neuron, the one that control the lower motor neuron. And this one also take into the another part that is the sensory. So this sensory is the vestibular, but this sensory is important to provide us the important the information about keeping body balance. So we will look into that. So first is the vestibular. So here is the vestibular sensory system or the vestibular sensory apparatus. The location is in the inner ear. So you probably have some idea about this inner ear anatomy. So basically that this is the outer ear and the sound wave entering into the middle ear transduce that sound wave in the air to the mechanical wave through these bones and then enter into this chamber. Now with the sound trans will be carried through the cochlea, and here we have the the sensory neuron that is the hair cell to transduce that mechanical movement toward the action potential, and that will be transduced to the brain to let our brain to know that sound. So that's the ear for the auditory signal. And very near to that, here we have these three semicircular ducts. And along these ducts, we also have two little chamber containing another sensory organ. So these three semicircular ducts are the include the sensor to detect the movements in rotational movement in three-dimensional space. We also have two chambers here that contains the little like a rock type of the organelle called the otolithic organs, otolithic organs right here. And all these together, this region is called the vestibular sensory apparatus. And that is the region to provide us the idea, the sensitivity, the detection of the body balance, as well as the gravity. So we know the gravity because of this one here. All right, so and these organs, this sensory signal is basically the same as the hearing that they both use the hair cell. The stimulation also follow the same pattern that these cells has the cilia located embedded in a special fluid called the endolymph. This special fluid, why is that special? Because these fluids are is high in potassium, so that's very unique. And uh, so their signal potassium channel become quite important in all these sensory receptors. So we will look into that. So these organelles are located in the membranes lab, labyrinth. So this is this tubule. Within this tubule, this containers within these containers, it's the endolymph, the special fluid. So that's that. Five separate receptor structure, including three semicircular canals and the two otolithic organs. All these are These little organs are located inside of this membranous labyrinth. Uh, and this, what's special about this memory labyrinth is that it's filled with this special fluid called the endolymph. So, so here is a close look into this vestibular system. So you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sensory organ. Each organ um, contains the hair cell. So this is the 3, this is 1, 2, 3, 3 semicircular ducts are oriented in 3 different orientation. And within it, it has the fluid. It doesn't say it here, but we will see it. Maybe here you will see. Here you go, the endolymph. So this endolymph is high potassium fluid, and that fluid fill in this semicircular canal as well as this chamber, here. All right, so these 3 semicircular ducts have this region, this enlarged area is called the ampulla. It's this, if we see the tube, we say it's enlarged, call it ampulla. Maybe it says somewhere here, it says is here, ampulla. And if you see the inner structure, you see it's enhanced. It's like little crista. So we call it crista, or a little, like a little heel inside of it is crista. So outside we call it an ampulla. Inside we call it a crista. And within this ampulla or crista, we see this structure. So this is the hair cell. The hair cell body is embedded right here with other supporting cell, and these cilia are extruded into this environment, and these cilia are all embedded within this gelatin structure called cupula. So that's that. So when there is any rotational movement, the fluid will push this gelatin, this cupula, and then it will bend this cilia. And by bending this cilia, it will trigger an depolarization or hyperpolarization, depending on the direction of that movement, and that will be transduced to release neurotransmitter, acts on the ganglion cell, the vestibular ganglion cell, and then transduce signal into the brain. Here is another two. These 2 chambers are including the saccule and what, and the saccule and the utricle and the saccule. Uh, and in this region, we see it has little like spots on it, so we call it macula. It's very much like in the retina we have this dented, like intense region, right? Little spot, we call it macula. Here we call it same thing here, macula. All right, so in this macula, we have something similar, but not exactly the same. We have hair cell embedded in the gelatin. A difference about this region is that in addition to the gelatin, it also on top of it, we have this like stone type of the material. This is called the otolith, or we call it otoconia. And this basically is like the stone that you typically can see on the road. It's just specialized, very delicate, organized, crystallized structure here. And so by having this here, this hair cell not just only sensitive to the balance. So these 3 semicircular ducts are sensitive to the rotational acceleration. These 2 are sensitive to the linear acceleration. Okay, Not only that, because of this otolith or otoconia, that it also sensitive to the gravity. So say we lay down, then this will pull this gelatin toward lower, right, lower area, and that will trigger this hair cell. So by doing so, that even though we just simply change location relative to the gravity, we can detect it. We can send a signal from the hair cell. This hair cell will then cause by bending it toward. Basically, if the hair bending toward the kinocilium is a depolarization, if the bending away from the kinocilium is the hyperpolarization. If it's depolarization, this cell will release more neurotransmitter, the glutamate, the excitatory neurotransmitter, to this nerve. This is a ganglion nerve, and then send signal into the brain. There are two types of hair cell. The major difference is this synaptic structure. So with the type 1, these postsynaptic sites totally like uh, uh, cover the entire cell body. As for the type 2 hair cell, the postsynaptic sites only contact, like little spine right here, contact with the hair cell body. All right, so let's get a closer look into this semicircular canal. So that is this semicircular canal. So within this one, it filled with this fluid called the endolymph, and the sensor organ is right here. So if we zoom in into this sensor organ, we can see that the hair cell, these sensory neurons, have these cilia embedded by this gelatin structure called the cupula. And so when there is any rotational acceleration, it will move this and bend the cilia. When it bends toward the kinocilium, it causes depolarization. The nerve will release the neurotransmitter X on the ganglion cell, transduce signal into the brain. Uh, so that's that. As for the two autolytic, autolytic, autolytic organs, um, organs, we have the utricle and the saccule. These two, if we look into the outside, we can see these two like spots. We call it macula. And if we look into it, we can see that very similar like the semicircular uh, ampulla, that it has the hair cell as the sensory neuron, and the cilia are embedded in the gelatin matrix structure. In addition to that, we have this rock on top of it. This is called the otolith. And these otoliths are basically this is the calcium carbonate. So that is very typical rock material. And this can also call otoliths, also called statoconia or the otoconia. So depending on different contexts, but basically talking about the same thing. So that's that. Now let's look into this hair cell. This hair cell has this cilia. So what you really know about this hair cell? Well, in each organ, these hair cells are organized in a way that they will have some polarization. That means that these hair cells are typically have the same orientation to like the kinocilium are always on, say, the one side of the entire organelle. And for each cell, we can also have this kinocilia on one side of s- that, s- uh, that group of the cilia. These cilia include the kinocilia, that is the longest one, that is on one side. We also have the smaller one, shorter one, that's called the stereocilia right here. So you can see that this group, basically, this group is, if we see the dimensional map, two-dimensional image, we can see kinocilia on one side and like linearly from tallest to the shortest. Or if we see from the top down, we can see kinocilia is on one side and the other stereocilia are from the tallest to the shortest, like that. So that's that. So totally, each cell has about 50 to 70 cilia, one kinocilia, the others are stereocilia. When this bending toward the kinocilia, it will cause depolarization. And by doing depolarization, it will release neurotransmitter. These neurotransmitters is the glutamate, the major excitatory neurotransmitter. So you can see that the more neurotransmitter on it, this ganglion cell will send out more action potential. This action potential will then travel through the cranial nerve 8, entering into the brain. If the cilia bending away from the kinocilia, then it will cause the hyperpolarization. So the number and the frequency of the action potential will be reduced. Is reduced. So that's that. And then the way that cilia is discharged is by this special potassium channel. So these cilia are all embedded in the endolymph. Endolymph right here, endolymph. Endolymph contains high potassium. And so the way that it does it, it is change its membrane potential is by bending this cilia toward the kinocilia or away from the kinocilia. If it's bending toward the kinocilia, the potassium channel open. Now, usually, typically, that potassium channel can lead to hyperpolarization because inside of cell we have high potassium. So, and the extracellular space typically has low potassium in the extracellular space. And so, when open up the potassium channel, potassium flow out will lead to the hyperpolarization. It's a typical inhibitory signal. But in these hair cells inside of the ear, these hair cells are embedded in the endolymph, and endolymph has high potassium. So this channel open potassium will go in higher than the potassium level inside of cell. Potassium go in will actually cause the depolarization, not the hyperpolarization. So potassium going induce depolarization. With the depolarization, the cell opens up the voltage gated calcium channel. So this one is nothing unusual, nothing typical, nothing special, because all the neurons, you will see that in the axonal terminal, uh, action potential travel through the axonal terminal will open up calcium channel. This calcium is needed to undock these vesicles to make this neurotransmitter get released. So that's how. So the point here is that these hair cells are embedded in special fluid called the endolymph. And what's special about that is that this fluid contains high potassium concentration. And how is these cells get excited? That's because when it bends toward the kinocilium, potassium channel open. Okay, so that's the mechano uh, receptor. How and this mechano receptor is induced by opens up the potassium channel. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, that these hair cells are arranged in a way that all these kinocilium are located, put it on the same side across the entire field. So you can see that this is a cupula of the crista. So this is part of the semicircular ducts. And these hair cells are basically all on one end. And so if you rotate, if the head rotate one side, it can cause depolarization, rotate the other side, cause hyperpolarization. So the brain will know that just by receiving this action potential, increase, decreasing, brain will know which direction this head is rotating to. So this is the cilia. Sorry, this is the semicircular ducts. However, in the two otolithic organ, utricle and the saccule, these hair cell. Look at this uh, otolithic organ. For example, you can see that. Let me do this one here. Let me do this one here. Let me do this one here. Make it larger, easier to see, easier to appreciate. All right, crop it. All right. Yes. Yes. That's that. All right. So you can see that these hairs, this kinocilium, are not always on one side, but this is on one side toward this point. And from here on, these kinocilium are located on the opposite side, on the opposite side. So for the otolithic organ, that this orientation are this polarization is put it away to depending on this central line. This central line is called the striora. So for each of these otolithic organ, if you look it from the top, you can see a striora that's going through these uh, this otolithic membrane, and the utrica and saccule would have this kinocilium either or facing the striora or away from the striora. Let's look at each one of this one here. So this is the polarized organization of this cilia. So we can see that this is the utrica, this is the saccule, the center part is the striora. And for the utrica, all the kinocilium are facing the striora. As for the saccule, all the kinocilium are facing away from the striora. So that's the difference between the otolithic organ and the semicircular canal. Another thing that you need to know about this otolithic organ is that this otolithic organ are sensitive to the linear acceleration. Now, with linear acceleration, it can have 2 or 3 acceleration. It could be the plan, right? Left, right, forward, backward. That is the specialty of this one, Utrica. So Utrica, the way I think about it is like making a U-turn Utrica. So it's like planning, right? Like planar, like horizontal change. Another is the saccule. Saccule is the one sensitive to the up and down. That's also linear acceleration, right? Taking the elevator, moving up, moving down. The one to detect is the saccule. When you move down, these saccule are located on the inner inner ear on these vestibular apparatus right here, sulcus right here, right? And then on top of it, you have this stone, and then when you move up, this stone will pull down, and it will bend this hair cell. When it bends, it will part of it, part of it will cause depolarization. The other part will cause hyperpolarization. So, and if it's moving this way, part of it will cause depolarization. The other part will cause hyperpolarization. So by doing so, that our brain can know that whether the movement is moving up or moving down. So that's that. So what you need really know is that the semicircular ducts, semicircular canal, sensitive to the rotational acceleration. The autolytic organ are sensitive to the linear acceleration, including the horizontal one as well as the vertical one. So that's that. And also that's the in the autolytic organ, there is a line called the striatum. And this line indicates that in the one half of this macula have this kinocilium facing the striatum, and the other half facing the also facing the striatum. But basically, they were facing to each other or facing against to each other. So that's that. All right. So after knowing this hair cell, the next thing we need to know is that they don't send axon directly to the brain. They release neurotransmitter. So as you can see that it's not sending out, extending the axon from the cell body. They release neurotransmitter. You can probably see here, they release neurotransmitter. And what's the next cell? This cell is called the vestibular ganglion cell. So that's right here, vestibular ganglion neurons. This vestibular ganglion neuron will receive the neurotransmitter from the hair cell, get excited, transmit the action potential to the brain. And this vestibular ganglion neuron sending out the vestibular nerve. This vestibular nerve will then merge with the cochlear nerve. So here is the cochlear nerve. This is another nerve. This is the cranial nerve 7, but this one is cranial nerve 8. So these two, the vestibular ganglion nerve, vestibular ganglion axon, sending the vestibular nerve, merge with this cochlea. Cochlea is from the auditory. So these two merge together, form the cranial nerve 8, called the vestibular cochlear nerve. And this nerve will then send to the brain. The cochlear part will go into the cochlear nucleus, that is to process the auditory signal. The vestibular will send to the vestibular nucleus. Not just that, part of it will directly send signal into the cerebellum. So that is the secondary neuron, right? The first neuron is the hair cell. The secondary neuron is the vestibular ganglion neuron. This vestibular ganglion neuron will send out axon to form the vestibular nucleus, vestibular nerve. Then vestibular nerve ending at the vestibular nucleus. The vestibular nucleus in the brainstem is the third nucleus. So this is another picture showing you this cranial nerve from the inner ear, from the inner ear. So you can see that this is the vestibular portion. We have five organ, five sensor organ. So each one will basically provide its own axon bundle, and this axon bundle form the vestibular nucleus. And we also have this nerve from the cochlea. So this transmit the signal about the auditory signal. these two merge together to form the cranial nerve 7. The other one very nearby in this region is cranial nerve 7. This one is cranial nerve 8. Then enter into the brain. So that's the cranial nerve 8. All right, so after entering into the brain, these vestibular ganglion neurons send out axon into the brain. Once it's entering into the brain, they basically the majority of those innervate into the vestibular nuclei right here. So this is the vestibular, this region is the vestibular nuclei right here, vestibular nuclei. Some of these vestibular ganglion cell will send axon directly toward the cerebellum, right here, cerebellum. From the vestibular nuclei, it also will send signal into the cerebellum. So you can see that cerebellum plays an important role to process this vestibular signal. So vestibular ganglion cell directly sent to the cerebellum through this inferior peduncle. We will talk about it. Peduncle, cerebellar peduncle has three portions: superior, middle, inferior. Now this one is through the inferior. Once it enters into the vestibular nuclei, it will send to different region in the midbrain and the other portion of the brain. So basically, you can see that this vestibular nuclei will send signal into the spinal cord. This one from the vestibular spinal tract that we just mentioned in part 1. Vestibular will also send signal into the cerebral cortex, so our brain will know our body balance, and that sends through. Everything going to the brain has to go through the thalamus. So it goes through the ventral posterior medial nucleus in the thalamus, and then through the brain. This one also sent to different nuclei in the midbrain and a brainstem. In the major one right here, including the uh, abducent nucleus, the trochlea nucleus, and the oculomotor nucleus. So the most important one among these three is this one, ocular nucleus, because this is the one to conduct the vestibular ocular reflex. This one control the eye movement, basically. So the idea about this vestibular ocular reflex is that when we move head, the first thing to detect the head movement is the vestibular apparatus right here in the inner ear. And so it knows which direction the head is moving. Then it will go through this nucleus to control the eye movement. The way I move is not because of the vision, but because of the vestibular. And the way I move is to move the same magnitude of the head move, while opposite direction to the head move. So basically, if you look at your screen, right, and your head move into the left, and you see exactly the same thing, it's because that your eye moving to the right. Otherwise, your eye will follow your head, right? But your oculomotor nucleus control your eye movement to move the same magnitude but opposite direction. Then we can basically be able to keep our visual field not changed while our body is in a very dynamic moving condition. So that's this one here. All right, and what else we need to know? All right, so this is basically the function of the vestibular, and there are more to talk about, of course, but here we focus on the most essential portion. We focus on the essential portion, and And as long as you know this, I think you are pretty okay with to complete all this, in the future, physical therapy, activity, and exercise physiology. So that's that. All right. In addition to that, I want to end this portion, this vestibular portion, by talking about this concept that keeping our body balance, the major component is the vestibular nuclear complex, and that communicated with the cerebellum. Sorry, the input right here, vestibular receptor right here is an important component. However, we also rely on vision and the proprioception. So that's the concept I want to give you to talk about the body balance. So to maintain body balance, it's very important to know that not just the vestibular, but proprioception plays an important role, because if you don't know your body's position, it's very difficult to to get the correct reflex in order to keep body balance. And to know your body's position, you need to have a good proprioception. Um, and also vision is a good one. Although vision, for example, especially that if you are in the position that body, keep like you need to maintain a very good body balance. Visual is also a very important input. So these three are important to maintain body balance. Visual receptor, and that's why we talk about that too. Vestibular, that we talk about today. Proprioception, somatic sensory input that we talk about in the sensory. So in the sensory, we basically talk about the three now already. Their input include into the proprioception will send major signals sent to the brainstem into the vestibular uh, nuclei. It will also send to the cerebellum. The visual signal will send to the vestibular nucleus and also the cerebellum. The vestibular is one that we talk today, sent to the vestibular nucleus and the cerebellum. And these three will communicate with each other. Cerebellum will send the signal into the vestibular and the reticular. Reticular information is important to maintain the muscle tone. Vestibular is important to maintain posture and the body balance. Cerebellum probably is a center one to kind of mediate all these together. So this is relatively a higher end of the brainstem right here, vestibular and the reticular, and the receive and analyze the signal from vestibular, visual, and proprioception. So that ends this one here. Now, because of the importance of the cerebellum, the next stop is to talk about this cerebellum. So this is the cerebellum. If we look at from the top, you can see that cerebellum is very much like cerebrum. It has two hemisphere, left hemisphere, right hemisphere. And by having this hemisphere, they also have different functional division. We have the center portion is called the vermis. Then we have the intermedia and the lateral zone. Also, we have this little lobe right here. It's called the folliculonodular lobe right here. So each one have designated function, even though they are all located in the cerebellum. It's very much like like a cerebral cortex. Like different lobe play individual like a function, like its own specialty. So that's the cerebellum. All right, so how can we start to look into it? The way I like to start looking at it is to get the connection of its input and the output. So we will know that what's the signal input and what are the signal outputs. So we kind of will get the idea that how is the function of cerebellum. If we know their input and output, then we have the idea that what's their function. So their input and output are very good things, but that their input and output are very simple. It's because that these cerebellum connect with the brainstem through only one bridge. So this is the brainstem. Cerebellum does not connect with the cerebrum. This is the front. This is the back. So here is the occipital lobe. Cerebellum and the occipital lobe are separated by this bone, this skull called the tentorium. Tentorium separate this bone, separate cerebrum and the cerebellum. So make this cerebellum is kind of like the isolated island. There's only bridge connecting cerebellum with the other part of brain. And that bridge is called the cerebellar peduncle. So some simple concept facts is right here. Cerebellum only 10% of the brain volume, but it has over 50% of total neurons in the brain. So you can imagine that the size of the neuron is smaller, the brain is smaller, but the size of the neuron is even smaller. So the density is pretty high, and a lot of neuron separate from the occipital lobe by the cerebellar tentorium, and the connection, the bridge between the cerebellum and the brainstem is the cerebral peduncles. So let's look into this cerebral peduncle. Cerebral peduncle has three pairs because cerebellum has two hemispheres. So it has three pairs. We have the superior, middle, and the inferior. So we need to know what's their input and output. Superior connect with the midbrain, including the red nucleus. And from here, it will go through the rubrospinal tracts to the spinal cord. It will also connect with the thalamus. So basically, this one is an output pathway. It outputs to the thalamus. The next stop is the brain. So everything going to the brain goes through the thalamus. And another output pathway is going through the red nucleus. So if you have idea about the rubrospinal tracts, it's not that far away. It's just last lecture. Rubrospinal tract received two inputs. One is the cerebellum, the other one is cerebral cortex. So that's right here. Cerebellum sends signal into the red. Yeah, so there are three bundles, three pairs, bundles, three bundle pairs, including the superior, middle, inferior. Now, superior to the thalamus and the red nucleus are basically all output pathway. The middle one going to the palm. This palm basically going to the cortex. So the way that cortex will need to communicate with the cerebellum, and they don't directly send signal down here. They send through the pontine, then palm send signal in. So this middle one, middle cerebellar peduncles is the one that receive the input from the cortex. So it basically has the output pathway, the input pathway, and here the inferior one. The inferior ones innervate with the spinal cord, with the vestibular, reticular in the brainstem. So basically, that the spinal cord information. The spinal cord basically is the proprioception. So we mentioned that to communicate with the cerebellum, it need to have these three inputs. The somatic sensory, basically that is the proprioception, need to go into the cerebellum. And that is this one right here to the inferior. I think we have the picture right here. Right. Also the visual visual is a little bit too far, but the vestibular nucleus will also input into the cerebellum, right? So right here, vestibular will go into the cerebellum, both the vestibular directly or from the vestibular nuclei. They will go into the cerebellum through the inferior peduncle. So that is right here. The inferior, the inferior peduncle. Inferior peduncle will receive a signal of the proprioception about the vestibular. It will then send out signal into both vestibular nuclei and the cerebellum. And so from the vestibular, it will then send signal into the spinal cord, right? So we have the vestibular spinal tracts. Reticular nuclei send out through the reticular spinal tracts to the spinal cord to control the, from the reticular spinal tracts will control the muscle tone. Vestibular spinal tracts will control the body balance. And that basically receives signal from the vestibular apparatus, from the vestibular sensory signal, as well as from the cerebellum. So with this one, the inferior one will include both input and output. Maybe this is a good example that the input output, the including the output basically going from the superior peduncle to the thalamus to cortex to the red nucleus to rubrospinal tracts and then down into the spinal cord. Receive signal from the cortex through the cortical spinal. Let me talk to talk to her very quickly. Pause. So the cortex sends signal to the cerebellum and goes through the pontine. So we have the cortical pontine and then pontocerebellar tracts going through the middle cerebellar peduncle right here, middle cerebellar peduncle. Now the inferior cerebellar peduncle receive both input and output. There are two major input. One is from the proprioception through the spinal cord. We will also have the vestibular sensory signal and the vestibular nuclei enter into the cerebellum. The output will go from the cerebellum to through the inferior peduncle to two regions. One is the vestibular nuclei. The other one is the reticular formation. Let me write down to make it more complete. Yeah, so output to the vestibular and the reticular nuclei. So that's that. So now you have the input output. Another thing I want to bring you the attention is these three nuclei. So in the cerebellum, we have input, we have output. However, all the output signal coming from different nuclei. We call this nuclei deep nuclei in the cerebellum. So basically that if we opened up the cerebellum, if we opened up, I think we have picture right here. If you opened up the cerebellum, you can see that deep in that cerebellum tissue, we have this deep nuclei. This deep nuclei include the dentate, interpost, right here, and the fastigial. These three nuclei, three pairs of nuclei are the output, the source of the output for the cerebellum. So that is right here. Here, three nuclei. Dentate, the output is to the thalamus and to the cortex. Interposed, the output is to the red nuclei and then rubrospinal tracts. Fastigial, the output is to the vestibular and the reticular nuclei. And then from here, it goes to the vestibular spinal tracts and the reticular spinal tracts. So that's three output. We will go back to talk about these three nuclei again. So let's summarize here the input pathway, including the input signal from the cerebral cortex via pontine. So it goes through the cortical ponto cerebellar tracts, pass via the pontine to the cerebellum. We also have signal from the vestibular nuclear, vestibular sensory organ from the proprioception via the spinal cord. So these are the inputs. So you get the idea that the cerebellum basically its function including the information from the cortex as well as information from the vestibular, information from the proprioception. So a lot of this is about movement, body balance, and how to keep moving and keep body balance while knowing the position of our muscle. So that's that. And all these inputs basically go through two different pathway, two different pitango. The cerebral cortex go through the middle cerebellar pitango. The input from the vestibular and the proprioception go through the inferior cerebellar pitango. So that's the input pathway. The output pathway are from three deep nuclei, including the dentate. Dentate sent to the thalamus, then this one going to the brain. And that output has its purpose. Its output is to tell the brain about all this integrated information of what cerebellum has collected. So basically that include the body balance, about the proprioception. So what's that? This information important because from the proprioception, it can know how is the movement was conduct. You know, it's a finished movement is conducted. Perhaps you try to move a dancing, have a dancing movement, but you fail, right? And so you have that body balance information, and you also have your muscle, your every muscle. So you know your cerebellum know exactly how that movement was done, but was not done well. So that can provide that information through the dentates to the brain, and the brain would use that to adjust the next one, right? So you can practice again and again and improve from there. The interpost nucleus will send signal into the red nucleus. And this one is very similar like the one to the cortex, but this one uh, further improve that skill movement because now this red nucleus will receive signal from the cerebellum and from the cortex. And so it can when the brain need to do further adjustment of the movement, they can use this one to improve the skill of the movement. And also from the vestigial nuclei to the this one will send signal to the vestibular nuclei and the reticular formation of the brainstem. So from here, our cerebellum will control or influence the vestibulospinal tracts to keep our body balance. It will also control our muscle tone. Reticular formation is the one to control the muscle tone. Reticular spinal tracts is the one to control the muscle tone. So that's that. And this output pathway basically goes through two different cerebellar peduncles to the dentate and the interpose to the nucleus, from the dentate to the thalamus to the cortex, from the interpose to the red nucleus to the rubrospinal tracts, all this going through the superior cerebellum. So basically right here, dentate to the thalamus, interposed to the red, going through the superior cerebellum. The fastigial will go in through the inferior cerebellum to the vestibular nuclei and the reticular formation. So that's right here, vestigial right here. So that's the input and output. All right then. So this is an example of the input and output with the cerebral cortex. Signal from the cerebral cortex will go through the pontine, then go to the middle cerebellum. The signal back to the cerebral cortex will go from the dentate through the superior and to the thalamus. It will innervate to the ventrolateral lobe of the thalamus and then to the cortex. So that's that. So, and the middle is the one that is received. The large panel conveys the pontocerebellar fiber from the pontine to the cerebella. Pontocerebellar fibers arise from the pontine nuclei. This one basically is the one convey the information from the cortex. So pontine convey from the cerebral cortex, pass via the pontine to the cerebellum. So total is cortical pontocerebellar tracts, cortical pontocerebellar tracts going through the middle one. So that's that. So the next thing we need to know is that this cerebellum uh, have a designated output nuclei. So these output nuclei are called the deep nuclei. So this is the brain including the cerebellum, and here is the 3 deep nuclei. Just you have the idea that this is the vestibular nuclei right here. That's and the inferior olivary. Here, inferior olivary is one that process the auditory signal. So the cranial nerve 8 will innervate one contact with the vestibular nuclei. The other one, cochlear nerve, will contact with the inferior olivary nuclei. And here is three deep nuclei right here. Dentates contact with the thalamus. Interpost will contact thalamus right here. Interpost will contact with the red nucleus. So this one will go through the superior peduncle. Fastigial will contact with the vestibular and the reticular formation. So this one will go through the inferior cerebellar peduncle. So that's these 3 deep nuclei. For to better knowing this structure or this like design of these 3 deep nuclei, we need to know about 3 division of the cerebellum. So cerebellum can be divided into 3 divisions. Each one use different deep nuclei as their output signal. So we have the 3 division. Each one has its own output. Each one has its own location or the region. Each one has own input. Each one has its own function. So basically everything is summarized in this slide. We have the vestibular cerebellum. All right, so this 3 division has its own region in the cerebellum. Let's look at this picture first. So you can see that we have 3 different color and you can see that that basically we have three different zone in a way that we have the this is the uh, faccionaggio lobe and vermis. These are part of the vestibular. So the major one is the faccionaggio lobe. Part of the vermis altogether is the function for the vestibular cerebellum. We also have the intermedia hemisphere. This one is a process to uh, process the spinal cerebellum. Right here, spinal cerebellum, part of the vermis, part of the intermedia hemisphere is one called the spinal cerebellum. And the most lateral one is called the cerebral cerebellum. So each one has its own like zone or region. They have their designated input, they have their designated output. So that's right here. So let's go through this one. The vestibular cerebellum include the region including the faccionaggula that is right here, faccionaggula, as well as the adjacent vermis. So part of this one here, vermis, are these vestibular cerebellum. Their input are everything about this vestibular system. So including the vestibular sensory organ as well as the vestibular nuclei. And then they send to here and then through which peduncle? Through the inferior cerebellar peduncle. Right? And they send to here, process it, and then send out. The send out is sent through this deep nuclei called the fastigial nuclei. So that is this one here. So that is the fastigial nuclei. And then send out to where? Send out basically send out back to the uh, vestibular nuclei and also the reticular formation. Let me So the output of this fastigial nucleus to the vestibular and the reticular nuclei. So this is about the body balance and excite the extensor. The reticular nuclei is to excite the gamma motor neuron to cause the muscle tone, right? Affect the muscle tone. Could be excite, could be inhibit, depending on whether that's pontine or whether that's medullary reticular nuclei, right? And the spinal cerebellum is one to control is located in the intermediate lobe. It receives signal from two area. One is from the proprioception, and then from the motor cortex. Then these two will integrate together to affect the interpost nuclei, and then the output is through the interpost nuclei to the red nuclei, and that is red nuclei will then send signal to the rubrospinal tracts. Then that one is to uh, for 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 flexor and for skill movement. It's a supplement circuit for the cortical spinal tracts. So that's this one here. Vestibular is not directly for the skilled movement. Vestibular is more like keeping body balance because its output is on the vestibular and the reticular nuclei. So these two doesn't directly control the fine movement, the flexor. These two control the body balance, the extensor, and also the muscle tone. So that is the difference between these two. I was a little bit like overlapped on these two, but now I want to make it clear that the vestibular cerebellum is one because its output is not red nucleus. It's not something that control the fine movement. It's the one to control the body balance and also the muscle tone. The cerebral cerebellum, the process receives signal from the cerebral cortex. So this is about like the planning of the movement, and they send signal into the lateral zone of the cerebellum. Then the signal will process, calculation. The output is from the dentate nucleus. This dentate nucleus then sends signal back to the cerebral cortex. So compared to these two, this one doesn't send signal to the spinal cord. This one output is vestibular reticular sent to the vestibulospinal tracts, reticulospinal tracts. This one sent to the red nucleus. This one will go through the rubrospinal tracts. All of these are control the lower motor neurons. With this one though, it's coming and back, all back to the cortex. So, so this one not directly involve the the lower motor neuron. They are more like pre, the processing, the thinking, the adjustment of the movement. So the output from the dentate sent to the thalamus, from thalamus to back to the cortex, back to the premotor and the motor cortex. So with this one, it's about planning, about the timing, sequencing of the movement. Yeah, so this is more like planning, not a directly movement. Once we have this planning, then motor cortex will send signal into into the low motor neuron. From there, we may have a movement. So just showing you this picture again. There are three divisions: vestibular cerebellum, the spinal cerebellum, the cerebral cerebellum. They have its own input. They have their own outputs, and each one, because of the output, we know what's their function, right? If it's to the vestibular and the reticular, we know it's for the body balance and the muscle tone. If it's to the red nucleus, we know that is for the skill of the movement to kind of improve the performance of the movement. If it's from the dentate back to the cerebral cortex, it's about the movement planning, the sequencing of the movement. It's more like calculating before the movement. So it's back to the brain, and from brain they will be getting more the information, and then we have the movement. So that's that. Now let's go look into each one of this one here. Now this is the vestibular spinal tracts, vestibular cerebellum. So you can see that this is the region. You can see that input, including the visual, auditory. So a lot of this cranial nerve ends there, not directly, but uh, transmit their signal down here to the cerebellum, and that's important to keep body balance. And we also have inputs from the vestibular signal. Their output, so the input is visual, vestibular, auditory. The output is from the fastigial nuclei to the vestibular and the reticular nuclei. Then it will send through the vestibular spinal tracts for body balance, excite the extensor, and the posture. Reticular fiber will, reticular spinal tracts will then affect the muscle tone by controlling the gamma motor neuron. So these are, directly related to our earlier lecture about the lower motor neuron. Those are the alpha and the gamma motor neuron located in the spinal cord. Their function affecting the posture, body balance, affecting the stand, because stand is about the axial muscle tone. the gates. This one you need to control the muscle tone by exciting and releasing it, relaxing it, walking patterns. So this one also related to the uh, to the locomotion. So that's that. So even though locomotion is local circuits in the spinal cord, but that affected by the vestibular spinal tracts, reticular spinal tracts, and indirectly affects by the cerebellum. So this one just show you a figure showing you the uh, output pathway actually of the vestibular cerebellum output, including we do have the input pathway here. Input pathway is the vestibular to the vestibular nucleus to the cerebellum. Vestibular can also directly send signal into the cerebellum. Majority is through the vestibular nucleus though. The output is from the fastigial nucleus sent to the vestibular nucleus, then to the vestibular spinal tracts. Another output is to the reticular formation. Now, the reticular formation has two portions. Reticular formation including pontine. This one will excite the gamma motor neuron. Medullary reticular formation is one to inhibit the gamma motor neuron. So one will enhance the muscle tone, the other one will reduce the muscle tone. And so by doing so, we affect the walking, right? And affect the local motion. All right, the next one is the spinal cerebellum. Spinal cerebellum sends signal from the interpost nucleus and receive signal from two areas. So by the interpost nucleus to where? To the majority is to the red nucleus, but part will also send to the thalamus and to the motor cortex. So from the red nucleus though, red nucleus will then go through the rubrospinal tracts to affect the lower motor neuron. Rubrospinal tracts, what's its function? Is the flexor, is for the fine movement, right? And so that is this function is to conduct a skilled movement. So you can see that their input including the what's their input? Input muscle, that is the spinal cerebellum tracts. So this is the proprioception. Another input is from the motor cortex right here. So two input, motor cortex via pontine into the intermediate zone of the cerebellum. The proprioception goes through the spinal cord, enter into the intermediate lobe of the cerebellum. This one is for the proprioception. So it receive input about the motor cortex. So this region know what brains want. It also receives signal from the proprioception. So this region know that what is performed. And so this is a region, the center to compare the plan and what is being done. So it can compare that is this match the plan, right? Is this reach the goal? If it's not, then it can do some adjustment here. And so this is the major region for the improvement of the skilled performance. And then once it's done this calculation, then output will send signal to the brain to tell that is the new plan, so it goes through the thalamus to the motor cortex. It will also send signal through the rubrospinal tract to tell the muscle that, okay, you need to adjust this muscle in order to improve your performance. So that's that. So spinal cerebellum is one to improve the skilled movement. just very quickly look into this thalamus because we mentioned this several times that thalamus is a hub in the brain. So everything going to the cortex has to go through the thalamus. And this is the one. So VP is the one we mentioned before from the somatic sensory cortex. So sorry, from the somatic sensory signal in our skin go through the ventral posterior lobe of the thalamus, then go into the somatic sensory cortex. We also mentioned about this one here, the visual one. Visual one going to the uh, lateral genetic body or lateral genetic nucleus going to the visual cortex. Then today we are looking to this one from the cerebellum going to the ventrolateral lobe of the thalamus sent to the motor cortex. So we mentioned about this one several times. Two output nuclei will go through this one. One is the dentate, that is the cerebellum. The other one is the interpost going through this one here. So this one is this one. The interpost going through the thalamus, going to motor cortex. So this is the same slides that you saw before, the rubrospinal tracts, showing you that this is the major function is to affect the flexor, the limb flexor, mainly over the upper extremity. So it's about like fine movement, right? And important to, it receives signal from the cerebral cortex as well as the cerebellum. Cerebellum is one we learned today. We learned that right now. And that is important to improve the performance of a new skill. And from the cerebral cortex is to, as a supplement to support the cortical spinal tracts, spinal pathway. So that's that. And then the last but not least is the cerebral cerebellum. So this one is one to receive signal from the cerebral cortex, sending signal back to the cerebral cortex. So the signal received from the cerebral cortex through the pontine going into the cerebellum will enter into the lateral zone of the cerebellum. And then inputs mainly from the premotor and the somatic sensory, no directly peripheral, no directly to from the primary cortex. So this is from the premotor planning and also sensory. So get all this information. Then output going to the dentate back to the cerebral cortex. Back to the cortex has to go to the thalamus, then go into the premotor and motor cortex. So the function is not directly movement yet, but a signal process related to a movement. Is coming signal from the premotor somatic sensory, sending back signal into the premotor and the motor cortex. So, so it's more like planning, sequencing of the movement, but not the directly execute this movement. So this is the input output of the cerebellum. So we saw this before, but we didn't really talk it as a cerebellum. Now you see that the input pathway from the cortex has to go through the pontine, then enter into the middle cerebral peduncle. Maybe you can write down here, middle cerebral peduncle, enter into the cortex, cerebellum. The output going through the dentate, going through this in superior cerebral peduncle, then go through the thalamus, go back to the cerebral cortex. So that's that. So I want to summarize all these cerebellum function right here, 3 divisions, uh, including the vestibular cerebellum. This is to keep body balance while the body is during the movement. We also have the spinal cerebellum. So this is about the the uh, the skilled movement to have the uh, uh, to improve the timing of the muscle in order to make this performance to be more accurate, to meet the required or to meet the planned movements in the brain. So this is a comparison of what the brain wants and what is performed in the muscle. And we also have the cerebral cerebellum to kind of uh, provide the necessary motion, right? So uh, in a situation that does not well planned, but that's the thing that you plan to do the next move, right? So like I really like to. I don't know about you, but I used to watch these basketball a lot, NBA, right? And the way I like, I really don't have time to watch it right now, even though um, I assume to have more time because of the pandemic, but I really don't have that much of time. I have a lot of work, right? But I used to like to watch it, and the reason I like to watch the basketball is that these movements really present the beauty of this cerebellum. It shows you that how body can maintain balance while it's in the air, and that must be the vestibular, cerebellum to kind of provide this kind of amazing movement. We also need to have the skilled movement. Like even though that you can be balanced, but how would you shoot the ball very accurate, right? Right. So you need to do a lot of practice. In addition to that, in the real game, there are so many things going on. You need to very quickly make the adjustment, need to make the change of your muscle, of your direction of the turn, right? It's so amazing. And that must be done by this cerebellum that you have the planning, you have very quick planning that quickly change your position or direction along this movement. So that is that. All right, so we finish this vestibular cerebellum portion, and then we get a better idea that these portion involved in basically these supraspinal tracts. There are four supraspinal tracts that we mentioned earlier. That we have the vestibular spinal tracts, the reticulospinal tracts, the rubrospinal tracts, all these three are involved in the cerebellum that we talked today. Then the next one is the cortical spinal tracts, and that's one that we are going to talk on later. All right. So let me know if you have any questions.